There we and are we live? And let's go back. Pop up my chat. That's that done. Oof, nearly lost my phone. Just decides to slide off my microphone. That's just what you want. Well, is that going live? It has gone live. Oh, let's move the chat over here. I do that every time. Right, and YouTube chat done. Okay. Hi Kat, how are you? I'm very good. Few wee updates since my ban, my wee TikTok, but delayed me a wee bit. But we're here now. We're here to talk history, I suppose. And how are you? And anyone who's from Nurse Wamu, wow, welcome in. Finally made it. You did, and welcome in. Cat meet nurse, nurse meet cat in the YouTube chat. I would not suggest going into the TikTok chat because it will go mental. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to say that out loud because they already don't like me. Yeah. I suppose we'll just start getting. So, any history questions, Nurse? You crack away. You work away. And I'll, since TikTok have already started with all the questions, I'll start with them because we'll it's gonna get mental. I was told I'm related to Grace O'Malley. I mean, it's possible. She married into the Burkes. Her children were Burkes. She had brothers though, who were more than likely the chiefs of the O'Malleys. Grania was not a chieftain, and probably never met Queen Elizabeth I. Those are debated, up for debate. But she was a very important figure in the politics of Mayo and the O'Malley clan during the 16th century. So still a very, and I don't think women get enough representation in all medieval history, but also Irish medieval history. So I try not to dispel some of the myths too much because we need more representation. It's cool you know so much about this. Well, everyone has something they nerd over. This is just one of the ones I do. Yeah. Someone was asking there about Conroy. We'll go into some of the surnames as well. Where are the Joyces from? The Joyces are from a couple of places. The Joyce. This was originally Joyce country. But they were one of the 14 tribes of Galway, so one of the 14 mercantile families that ruled the political life, the mercantile life of Galway City. They seem to be of Norman extraction in this branch, but there was a Ulster branch as well. I believe they are from one of the plantation families. I love that you know all this. Well, I've got to have some charms about me, haven't I? Ireland clan, as in the surname Ireland. Yeah. So I think the first name was mentioned was Conroy. So I'll just say Conroy tends to come from like Leitrim and Meath. So you have Leitrim up here. Meath is this area sort of. Well, it's actually this whole sort of two provinces here. Um, there, but there's never really a like an overarching tribal group for them, so we'd never know. I don't know who they're related to. It's never really specified in any sources if they're part of like a wider tribe. But they're found. They tend to be found in those two places. Um, uh, So yeah, I know, right? So much stored in that noggin. Yeah, nurse. What I always tell people is that we all know people that can name every player of a football team, or name every weapon in DMZ and the attachments and the perks that come with it. Uh, but and this is just my one of them. um, Can you do O'Gara? Yeah, O'Gara's up here. They're related to the O'Haras. I know that uh, very similar sounding names. They are cousins of each other. They come from the Efiakra, so I'll get you a wee map here because I know not a lot of people are aware of these like wider tribal groups. So this is the Efiakra Mui, which was the tribal group of the area, and the main family of them was the O'Dowds, but the O'Garas and the O'Haras are related to them. So uh, they're found here. The land they ruled is in modern day Mayo, um, but most of their king group are in modern day Sligo. It's a Scottish name and an Irish name. Oh, it tends to be a variation of Muckbride. So Muckbride is it comes from MacGilla Brigid, so the follower of Saint Brigid. And there's a couple of branches of McBrides. There's a McBride from Fermanagh. There's also a McBride that came across with the plantations in the early modern period during the 17th century, uh, and they are interchangeable with Kilbride. So, sorry, the Kilbrides came from Scotland, and the McBrides were in Ireland. But the name became interchangeable, so you'll have some Kilbrides that were originally Muckbrides, and you'll have some Muckbrides that were originally Kilbrides. Because Kill is just like a church, so the Church of Bridget. So can you do Moran of Mayo? Yeah, I've actually got a video on the Morans already on TikTok. It was one of my last videos that I did. The Morans of Mayo don't really have a like an origin point. So it's not an origin point, like a wider king group. I did speculate that they were related to. Who did I speculate they were related to? I'm trying to remember that video now. Actually, I can get my note up just while I remember. um, let's get them up. Yeah. So yeah, there's no origin point given to them, as in like there's no descent of the family given to them. But they're originally from Tyrawley, the barony of Tyrawley, was their like landed area. But I have a Moran video that sort of breaks down all the branches. So much for ask. I'm out. Out of what? Uh, James, you do realise that I'm reading a couple of chats. Uh, I've got to run and do something. I'll be back soon. No worries, nurse. Let me. Are you still here, James? Are you still here? Do I have to go back and look for your comment? O'Briens tend to come from Clare. So they've most O'Briens will say they're related to Brian Boru, the High King of Ireland or Emperor Scotorum, uh, who uh, who conquered Ireland in the 10th century, 11th century, 10th and 11th century. He finally conquered it in 1011, and he is the progenitor of most O'Briens. but the problem is there are Brian is also an English name, so you will have had English Brians, um, and you would have had there's a Der Brian who came over with the Normans, and then you have the surname Breen, which sometimes gets anglicized to Brian because it comes the original pronunciation of the O'Briens was O'Brien, so you can see how it gets confusing. Um, so yeah, I mean they're so, but a lot of them would claim descent from here. So is McKinney Irish or Scottish? McKinney is Irish and Scottish. Most McKinneys tend to, if they're Scottish, can be a variation of McKinnon. Um, but yeah, McKinney's also got Irish sort of branches to it too. So yeah. Okay, let me see here. I know I've got a comment on from YouTube here, and I want to make sure that I haven't lost it. Okay, James. So you were asking, what is the surname Riddle Irish? Well, obviously in this etymology, it's more. It can be found in Scotland and England. I'm not aware of any Irish families that took the surname Riddle. It's definitely not in the I normally use for translations of or a list of families that took English surnames or Scottish surnames, Irish families who took English or Scottish surnames. I normally use DCU's National Folklore Collection, which has like 3,500 surnames, and I can tell you Riddle's not in it. So they haven't got any record of any Irish families adopting the Riddle surname. So it more than likely came across with the plantations. I'm not saying or with some sort of migration group, whether that be under Cromwell's army or you know another number of other sort of migrations into it. But it's I don't know of any native Irish families that had Riddle as a surname. So but I'm sorry I missed your original comment. Like I say, I do have multiple chats. It's yeah, it's just one of those, unfortunately. No, I mean, like I say, you'll have been in Ireland. Your grandpa wouldn't have been wrong in the sense that he's saying probably your family came from Ireland because they probably settled in Ireland for 200 or 300 years before they've moved on to somewhere else. If you're not still living in Ireland, I'm just assuming your family's not still living in Ireland. So what's happened is your family's moved across um, with these plantations, maybe in the 17th century, stayed for 200-300 years, and then moved on. You find that with a lot of families that came across the plantations. Many branches of them went on to the New World, or so yeah. I mean, they were in Ireland for a while, but they're not. They're not native, as in they haven't been here for like 1,000 years, like the O'Neills or whatever. But native's a very loose term. I'm not using that as a term to say that anyone who hasn't got one of these names shown here isn't Irish, obviously. You know. Doyle, I have a video on the Doyles. Most Doyles tend to come from the Leinster region, but they can be found in most coastal areas and areas that were sort of originally long forts or Viking settlements that sort of grew out, Norse settlements in Ireland, which has often led to the misunderstanding and erroneous claim that they are of Viking descent. And Doyles are not of Viking descent. I'm not saying that there aren't the odd line here that isn't from hasn't got a Norse paternal line, but by and large, most of them are just Irishmen that were moving into Norse settlements and working with them. Um, Kearney, yeah, Kearney is well is associated with a lot of locations. Kearney's like son of a Kern, so it's you get Kerns all over Ireland. It's a military caste within Irish society. Um, the most sort of prominent sort of areas are associated with like Limerick and Clare. Um, they're the tend to be the most uh, um, prominent lines. I believe the group in Clare claim descent from a clan Colla, but I haven't done any real research on them. But then obviously you've got like Kieran and Kiernan, um, uh, McKiernan, Kiri, Kerry. That all these sort of variations of the name that O'Kerry, you know, that all have all come from different areas. Like the McKiernans are from Cavan. Um, the who else did I mention there? McKierney, McTiernan's another variation of that. They're a branch of the O'Rourke's. But in McTieran, O'Kearys tend to come from like Meath, Leash. You see, I don't have them on here. That's a variation that can be used interchangeably with Kearney. Who else do we have there? Um, the O'Kearys are from Clare as well. So you see how it can have a lot of uh, parent houses that sort of confuse the genealogy of it all, um, which is I guess frustrating. I know it's probably frustrating for a lot of families that when they're trying to look for them. Well, I will say though is if you're a Kearney and you're looking for like and you've maybe associated with like Munster, Ulster, um, there is a branch that were related to the O'Hanlons as well. They're not from the same line, but they are related. And they were owners of a couple of churches in County Down, Donegal, Fermanagh. This sort of border region here. So there are a couple of churches that are associated with the Kearneys as well. So yeah, it gets a bit yeah, all over. Yes, they are. It's because of, like I say, it's like being like this, having the surname Smith. If you're named after a job title, well, obviously anyone could be named after a job title. So, um, it's a. I What's up with me not being able to find old history on the McKenna? Well, there's McKenna's from Monaghan. There's McKenna's who are so Monaghan's here. There's a quite a famous branch from Monaghan. So I think they're written in like records in 1591. With some of when the Tudor conquest of Ireland, excuse me, was happening. They're sort of mentioned in Monaghan in 1591 during that sort of invasion from the Tudors. So, yeah, I don't know why you're unable to find any information on the McKennas. Then don't get me wrong, I don't think they're well attested like the O'Reillys or the O'Neills, but there should be some some origin point for it. Yeah, it's strange if you're not able to find anything. O'Donovan, yeah. I will say if you're going to ask for a name, don't spell them in Irish. As great it is to see, um, I have to read them really quickly, and I don't know all the translations. Um, but O'Donovan comes from a couple of places, but probably the most famous place for it is probably Munster would probably be the most well known thing, most well known branch, shall we say? Uh, please on the is Neen? How do you spell it? Kneen? Neen? Is that how you pronounce that? I've never heard of that name. Never heard of it. That's a very strange name. That's a very not strange in a bad way. It's just I've never seen that, and I'm trying to think of like any way that can be broken down to another branch, another variation, like Keen or something. But I don't even know how to pronounce it properly first in the first place. So, uh, I figured there'd be older history, like the connection to Mackenzies. So if they're related to the McConaughey family or Mackenzies, um, that would be the Scottish branch of the name, not the Irish branch. I don't really cover Scottish branches all that much, um, just because of how many. I'm not that confident on Eastern Scotland history, and I don't want people to come across and ask me questions, and then I'm like, I don't know that about that part of Scotland, and it just, ends up into a whole thing. So, I tend to stay in my lane, which is primarily Irish history, and when it comes to Scottish history, it's general history with with the Highland families and the Border Reivers, which are my area of expertise. I know the McConaughey family are a Highland family, but I don't know all their septs and branches. So I wouldn't know. And also, but if you're looking Scottish family history, check out the Scottish History podcast with Clint Edwards. He does a great. He's got a Facebook page. He's got YouTube. I don't know if he's come to TikTok yet. I'll have to message him and find out. But yeah, he is a great source for Scottish history. Um, so yeah. Yeah. Who are we talking about before I saw your comment? Oh, O'Donovan's. What did we say? We said yeah, sorry, O'Donovan's. So we said they were a monster family, sort of related to the McCarthys. And then I think there is another family from Limerick who are from the Fidgenti. Um, so I hope that helps with the Donovans. Donovans, I don't know if I'd already said that or not. I may have repeated myself completely. Didn't realise they were separate branches entirely. Yeah, so I'll give you a great example here, Bren. If we come up here, just make sure YouTube, you still getting me. I'm getting a warning that the signal's dropped a wee bit. Yeah, Cassandra, I see you. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna assume you get me. So yeah, Bren, if you look here, like Campbell, Armstrong, traditionally associated with the Border Reivers and Highland clans, but these are Irish branches. They're not related to the Scotland branches. There are families of Campbells and Armstrongs that did come across. Oh, you got me on TikTok. Great. They did come across to Ireland later in the early modern period during the plantations of Ulster, but families would adopt Scottish names, and also because of Gaelic and Gaelic, Asquilga being effectively the same language right up, and they were the same language right up to the 14th century. By this stage, surnames have been around for the most part in Ireland, especially for nearly 400 years, and Scotland they're sort of forming. and because they're patronymic, they're being named after individuals. So McKenna is like son of Kenna. Um, you you have different branches forming that aren't related. There's different Kenners, you know. There's different Niles. There's different Cartons, you know. So yeah, that's why there's different branches. Heaney is a great wee name. Heaney's were they're from Tyrone primarily, Tyrone Donegal area. They were lords of uh, Western Ulster, so they owned like Fermanagh, Tyrone, Donegal for a very short period during around the rise of the um, O'Donnells, just before the O'Donnells came in. And they're found quite prominently in Tyrone. Hang on, I'm going to turn this off because I think this is draining my internet. O'Neill here. Yeah, O'Neill's, there's a couple of unrelated branches. So there's O'Neills from Ulster, who are obviously the most famous branch, broke off into a few branches. The O'Neills of Clan-de-Boy, the O'Neills of the Few, to name but a few. But there are an unrelated family of O'Neills found in Clare. I think they claim to be descended from the Dalcast king group, who are like this tribe here. But I've not found anything that supports that just yet. But I know that's in their traditional narrative. So there's two branches of O'Neills that are unrelated, but the O'Neills of Ulster are probably the most famous in Irish history, basically. Hang on, no, just got a wee text here. Texting on my live, naughty. Okay, right, back at it. Happy 12th, yes. Do you know what? I was so tempted to do a talk on the Battle of the Boyne tonight. I was really tempted to do to name off some of the I don't know anything about the obviously William's army, since most of William's army was made up of European forces, with the exception of some Enniskillen troops, like British. So they were made of Britons and European forces. So I don't know many of the people who fought in his army, but I know quite a few that fought in James's army, and obviously I know quite a lot about the battle and the context leading up to it and after it, because we see a large shift in land holding within certain families, so it ties on to that. So I was going to talk on the 12th on the Battle of the Boyne, but I just didn't in the end, which was a shame. I was even going to do a TikTok and everything. What is the significance of the 12th? That is a great question. The significance of it was not just in Ireland, it was a European felt event. It was a battle. The Battle of the Boyne happened, well, it's celebrated on the 12th of July, but I think I can't remember the original date, but I think the date is different because the Gregorian calendar changed, and I have a feeling it was sometime in autumn, but I could be wrong on that one. The date's irrelevant, really. The 12th of July is the Battle of the Boyne, where the newly crowned King of England, and I'm only going to use the term King of England, not for political reasons, but at this stage, although he's been crowned King of England, Scotland and Ireland, he hasn't taken Ireland yet. It's still, so you can't really, I'm not giving it him till after the 12th. So yeah, he lands in up here in Carrickfergus, with I think 26,000 men, if I remember correctly, to meet the, or 16,000 men to meet the 20,000 that are already being led by one of his second in commands in Ireland. Um, uh, and they're there to rid James of a launch pad and support for the restoration of his house as monarchs of England. Obviously, William is married to his first cousin, James's daughter, and but he has already claimed he actually refused to help reclaim the rest of what would become the United Kingdom unless government made him a co-ruler instead of a consort, which is basically his James's daughter would be the queen, and he would just be, I don't know how to break it down into a modern term, but second in command. So yeah, so I think it was a good. Hang on. The Jacobites is barely talked about. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's so. Yeah. So the Williamite army comprised of, like I said, about 35,000 men, and they're fully equipped. It's featuring like Dutch and Danish veterans. I believe his Danish Royal Guard was actually mostly Catholic, because it's obviously put into a religious context in modern times, and then too, to be fair, he did have the backing of the Pope for this invasion too, and like I say, he did have Catholics in his forces. It's also filled with French Huguenots, Prussian Brandenburgs. Is it the Dutch Blue Guards or the Danish Blue Guards? I can't remember. But one of those blue, I think, it's the Dutch Blue Guards. It's not Danish. Dutch Blue Guards are mostly Catholic. The Jacobite forces number 10,000 men less. They're about 25,000 or 26,000 men. James actually had previously purged a lot of Protestants from his army. He had quite a lot of Protestant support from, obviously, he is the head of the Anglican Church, the Church of England, and its branches, the Church of Ireland, Church of Scotland. So he did have natural support from them. But the problem is when he kicked all the Protestants out of his army, this was at the behest of some of his seconds in command, like the Earl of Tyrconnell, O'Donnell. He'd done it from his cavalry forces. The problem was that they ended up kicking out the only experienced troops they had. So most of James's army are raw, inexperienced, and they didn't even have enough rifles for all of them. So they were poorly equipped. So they were 10,000 men shorter than William's army. William's army was heavily well trained, well combat experienced, because they'd been fighting in a wider conflict. Is it 30 Years' War? Anyway, it's a big European conflict called the Grand Alliance against the French. So against the 26,000 poorly equipped, not even got guns. The only ones that were well equipped were the Irish cavalry and the 3,000 French troops that existed. Yes, that's right. The Dutch Blue Guards were the Catholic ones. I get the Danish and Dutch mix because it begins with a D. So anyway, so obviously it happens in the Battle of the Boyne, which is in the modern day Republic. So James positioned his army like along the Boyne River, and like it flows through Drogheda, and what happened is that initially, believe it or not, the James's forces had a slight upper hand because they were in a defensive position on this hill, and the Irish cavalry had managed to hit William's lines 11 times, and it was causing problems. Um, but the problem is that uh, the inexperience of the Irish forces. James had felt like William was going to flank behind him, and he pulled some of his better units back to try and counteract some this perceived threat of a flank. And unfortunately, that's when it all went downhill. William then does a three-prong attack, and it's William's left flank that does the most damage, and it curls round, and very quickly, the Irish obviously fall back. But yeah, it was. I think, and then, but the thing is, the Irish are the Donegal horse, the Tyrconnell horse, are known to have kept hitting the Williamite forces so the rest of the army could retreat, and they retreated in good order too. It wasn't like this big panic. They actually retreated a bit like the Battle of Culloden. They retreated in good formation, and the casualties of the battle were actually very low. I think there was only 1,500 Jacobite dead and 300 Williamite dead, or something like that. But the battle's significance is ridiculously exaggerated in the context of Ireland. It was more important for the wider European conflict. And actually, to be fair, it's the battles that happen afterwards that are probably more important, purely because, there were the crushing defeats. The Battle of Aughrim. There was 2 sieges of Limerick. The Jacobites beat William at the first siege of Limerick, but then the second siege, his forces took it. So yeah, it's so that's and obviously this is part of the wider Glorious Revolution, which is a religious event for Protestantism. Spreading its wings to fly. It's known as the Bloodless Revolution in England, but obviously it wasn't bloodless here in Ireland, so we don't call it that. Why are the French and Spanish always skimpy when it comes to soldier numbers to aid the Catholic Irish? To be fair, 3,000's not bad, considering for that's a diversion for them. They're fighting a massive conflict. You think the Grand Alliance consists of 5 or 6 nations just against the French? The 5 or 6 superpowers of the world. It's like World War II. It's like being the Germans. They're the German, and you've got literally everyone else against you. So to ask the French to commit, and in fact they committed 3,000 veterans as well, not even just raw recruits. You can't. I think that's not a bad donation. O'Reilly, my mother's maiden name. Yeah, O'Reilly's. Here you go. They're from East Cavan. They were kings of Breffna. I am going to be doing an O'Reilly video. I've had it done for ages. I just need to edit it. But I've been busy getting coached on TikTok. But yeah, they were cousins of the O'Rourke's, and they are related to the Ebrew and Breffna, which is a tribal group up here. The Ebrew and Breffna. This is the kingdom of Breffna. This connection to this wider, without confusing you too much, the Ebrew and tribal group, they're not actually related to them, but the was ruled by the O'Connors. So they claim descent from the O'Connor, similar line to the O'Connors, but it's not really true. I will definitely need to keep working on my Irish history before I escape the States. Well, to be fair, that history can be a bit contentious if you come up to where I live. I live in North Down. Just be careful repeating that around this time of year. Um, Carol, what about Carol? My hubby is African American, but has that surname. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of reasons why someone can have, being of African American descent, can have the surname Carol. I'm not going to speculate as to how, but we all know the bad reasons, and I hope we know the good reasons it can happen too. But let's just avoid that sort of conversation because it's not medieval Ireland. And I will just say that the O'Carroll's descent surname comes from two places primarily. We have Monaghan, which is, and they were part of the tribal group called Erchiela, which is this group here, this tribal group here. Hang on, I pushed the wrong button, and we're probably going to get a screen pop up here. Close that. But there's also probably the most famous group are the O'Carrolls of Ely, another tribal group down around it's like Tipperary, and you know, and they're probably the most famous branch. Most people associate themselves with these O'Carrolls than any other O'Carroll. I've opened up a tab here, and it's blocking my view. So yeah, there's two famous branches of O'Carrolls, but the O'Carrolls of Ely tend to be the most famous line. I missed Heaney. Yeah, I said the Heeneys tend to come from Tyrone, and they were kings of Western Ulster for a wee while. They owned Tyrone, they owned Fermanagh, and they owned Donegal for a very short time around the right, well, just as the O'Donnells were rising to power. Irish folk were the defenders of Catholicism on the Isles of Ireland, Britain, Fionn. You'd think they'd be given some credit. Do you know what? It's all Christianity at the end of the day. Thank you. I was wondering about Carl because I'm of Irish descent from my mum and didn't think too much of it till recently. That's okay. Yeah, they will get a video eventually. Both branches will eventually get a video, so that's not a problem. Was Ireland united at any point? Yes, a few points. Primarily, it depends. Now, it depends what model you want to use, but obviously we had kings that ruled the entire Ireland, but primarily Brian Boru gets the most credit for actually being securely a hold of it in 1011. But he would die in 1014, so it was a very short period. But there were kings like Mael Shocknall, Flann Shinna, who, in an early medieval context, the same way that what you call that king, the first king who. The same way the French claimed all of France, the same way the English claimed all of England in very early medieval history, you had the Irish doing the same thing. Ireland's history mirrors the rest of Europe. So if it was happening in France, if it was happening in Scotland, if it was happening in England, chances are a variation of it is also happening in Ireland. Ancestry.com says I'm 100% Irish. Oh, my sec talk. I live in USA, Boston, Massachusetts. Hartnett from Cork, I think. Live in USA, Boston, Massachusetts. I wouldn't listen to a word Ancestry says. The way they test isn't actually right. But I mean, it's still interesting, and it'll tell you who you're related to. They use a thing called autosomal testing, and it's just based on people common descent in your area and their genetics, and it builds up a pattern. So yeah, it's not a great marker for how Irish you actually are, um, but still, you obviously have some connection to Ireland. So um, so embrace it, find out more. Yeah, I hope you have a great journey on your finding out where you come from. Flood, the surname Flood. Yeah, it's actually, believe it or not, it's a variation of Tully. So, um, it's a variation of the surname Tully, who primarily. Actually, I keep meaning to put this in here. Actually, man, jeez. Right, I'll get Molly. Oh, sorry, I know Marie. Not Marie. I'll do Marie as well. But who else? Cassandra, and Marie. I'll get used to as well. And then Mull, because I've just seen another person put Mullin up. There you go. Flood. It's a variation of the surname Tully. Right. So who did we say? Who? Do you know? Yeah, Griffin. Give me 2 seconds. Who did we say? Where I forgot what names we were doing. Oh, McMullins. We have a couple of branches of McMullins. So, but one of the probably more famous is the Mullins here. Obviously, it's got variations of McMullins. They are a branch of the O'Cahans or the O'Keans. So you find them, and obviously then we have McMullins, obviously coming from Scotland as well. So McMullins can be a Scottish surname and an Irish surname. I've put this variation here. If you see a name that I'm putting here, and that's not the only way to spell it, I just put different variations to try and mix it up a wee bit, so that we, have a look at that. O'Rourke's, I'll get to them in 2 seconds. So then we're doing McMullins, yes. So they're related to the O'Cahans, O'Keans. So I have a video on the O'Keans TikTok, which you are on. If you watch the first bit about the family up here in Antrim, their history will be very similar because they descend from the same line. They're literally from a son of the O'Keans. So, and then we have Mahon. So, we have two famous branches of Mahons. Obviously, there's probably way more, but we have the McMahons of Monaghan, who I believe are related to the O'Carrolls. So they're related to the Kingdom of Archela, which we've just shown here. This is the Kingdom of Archela. And then we have probably the most famous line of McMahons, who are related to the O'Briens from the Dalcosh tribal group, down here. And I can't remember if they descend from a nephew or an uncle of Brian Boru from Mathmagan, or his brother was also called that too. I doubt they're related to him, but they might be. Anyway, they moved into the area known as Corcabaskin in Clare in the 14th century primarily. They're originally from further up, but they're probably the most famous McMahons. Then who were we talking? Someone else asked. What was the other name I promised to get to? Oh, O'Rourke's. So were they a big clan? They were a very big clan. So the O'Rourke's originally come from Leitrim, and they were kings for a very short time. Not for a short time, a couple of 100 years. They were kings of Connacht and Breffna. So they were kings of a very large kingdom, probably most of northwestern Ireland. Not as far as Donegal, but eventually they would be pushed into just Breffna or modern day Cavan, and their cousins, their related cousins, the O'Reillys, they would end up just being battling them for hundreds of years. So yeah, it's that's how it works. So like I say, they were very big at the start, and then they've Like most families, you know, they peak. They do peak. Uh, Hang on, I just seen someone say something there. Give me 2 seconds. Uh, Someone said that Munro Scottish. Munro, there is a uh, famous Munro. The Munros do claim to be Scottish, but even then, right? So there's an Irish branch and a Scottish branch. Okay, they're unrelated. Um, so it can be an Irish and Scottish surname, but even the Scottish branch of Munro claims to be Irish. They actually claim to be a branch of the O'Cahans, the O'Keans. Um, so yeah, you get the Munros who are Scottish, but they claim to be Irish. Now that's just their traditional narrative. I'm not saying whether it's true or not. That's just their traditional story, um, and they claim to be descended from the O'Cahans. But Munro was often a variation of Muelrua. So you get anyway you find Mulroy and its variations. Um, it tends to be um, anglicized to Munro. So, honestly, this is the most interesting live on TikTok. I'd listen to you every night. Oh, Claire, thank you very much. Way to butter me up. Hang on. Um, Interested in the powers. Did I put the powers down here? I think I just put them on the. I just put them here. But yes, you're right. They are from the southeast. They're a Norman family. They are a Norman family um, that came across and settled in the southeast. What am I missing over on TikTok? I see something about the 3, 2. What? I'm missing. I'm missing chat, so I need to just go back and just make sure. Scrolling up now before anyone thinks I'm just ignoring you. I'm just scrolling. Scrolling. Make sure I get all the chat here. I don't want to miss anything. And then get told off for it. Not that any of you would tell me off. You would. You so would. Could Faulkner be an Irish? Yes, Faulkner can. Faulkner comes from like Faulkney or like Faulkner. It's often anglicized to Faulkner, but I don't know of any areas that they're sort of associated with. I know there's like saints with the same name. So there's a couple. I think there's like 3 or 4 Irish saints with that name. But it's normally found. I think it's normally found in Ulster, but I can't remember. But yeah, Faulkner can be an Irish name. That's. Do you know anything about the surname Griffin? Yeah, so Griffin's got a Welsh and Irish branch. In Wales, obviously, you have the Griffins. I believe the Griffins in Wales are related to the Tudors, kings of England. Ap Tudor was the original Welsh surname for the Tudor dynasty that ruled England in the 15th and 16th century, with the most famous being Henry Tudor with his 8 wives. But his cousins or distant cousins, from the same male line, I think from his great grandfather's line, They were the Tudors. They anglicised their name to Griffin, and a lot of them people don't realise that Henry VIII's court, a lot of it was Welsh. He didn't just disown his whole Welsh heritage. He had his distant cousins in court positions, like the Griffins. But you also have the Irish Griffins. Normally it's O'Griffey. They are related to the O'Briens. They're from Ballygriffy, but it gets anglicised to Griffin too. So then it's a Clare name. Um, so our Clatterings. There's some interesting stories about the Clatterings, but I'm not a jeweler, so I don't know how. Lisa, thank you very much. Welcome to the clan. Thank you very much for your subscription. Actually, that's the point. That reminds me. Next Saturday, so a week today, is the members only live. So all my paying members on YouTube and my paying members on TikTok, we have our members only live coming up when I'll talk about some of the families you have requested. So get ready to get your family requests in for that live, and I'll do a live, and obviously your videos free is. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you. So thank you very much, Lisa. Welcome. McNamara, yeah, McNamara's are another O'Brien family. Or not O'Brien, but a Dalcath family. So yeah, they tend to be found in Clare. Although I know McNamara's all the way up in Ulster, so I kind of feel like there's probably a few branches, floating around. Tully, yeah, we just spoke about Tully, but since it's often anglicised to Flood, but Tully still exists. Obviously, it's from Fermanagh. O'Hagan, yeah, O'Hagan's. There's a few O'Hagan branches, but the most famous branch is from Tullyogue in Tyrone, and they crowned the O'Neills of Tyrone kings of Ulster, not Ulster, but kings of Tyrone, and they were part of the crowning ceremony of that dynasty. So, yeah, they are very famous. McManus is another family that sort of comes from Monaghan. They're part of the Arhellan kingdoms. There is another smaller branch, I believe, down in Clare as well. But the most famous branch comes from Monaghan area. Everlasting Petals, welcome. Welcome to the clan. Thank you very much for subscribing. To the Earfina as well, thank you very much. Really do appreciate that. I hope to see you on our members only live on next Saturday, 10 till 12. Dublin time, before I get anyone confused. So any questions you might have, because I know the chat gets a bit mental here. Although it's a little bit quieter than normal here, so you might not be too bad. But please, any questions, any requests, please either get them in now or I'll catch you on the members only live on Saturday. Savage, please. Yeah, Savage is a Norman name, found actually up where I live. They were primarily around the Strangford and the Portaferry side, well, all the way up to sort of Newton Ards, the Ards Peninsula. Was their heartland. A lot of, like, you've got a castle in Portaferry, you've got a castle in Kirkeston, that you can still see for the Savages. That name is also very common in Ireland. This is the area of Ireland I'm living in, and Savages are all over the place. Kinsella here. So Kinsella is a anglicisation of the Kenshellog, which was the tribal group here, of which the McMurroghs were the main house of. The Kavanaghs would then take over. They descend from the McMurroghs, and the Kinsellars are a branch of, they're all the same, they're all related. I was told my grandma of the clan Hope. Where would she be from? There's no clan Hope in Ireland. Um, the pro see that that's the problem. There's a lot of misunderstanding that every family in Ireland was a clan, um, or that every surname from Ireland is, somehow related to Ireland. Hope, I think Hope's a surname that would come across with the plantation, so it's quite a late addition to Ireland. Um, so yeah, it's quite a late addition to Ireland. It comes a little bit later, and I'm not aware of any Irish families taking on Hope as an Anglicization um, of any uh, you know Irish families would adopt English surnames. I'm not aware of any doing that for the Irish families. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, obviously. I'm just the database that I have researched doesn't have it. you know, so that's just Devlin is another Fermanagh name. Well, I mean, it's got something like 23 variations of the name, and it can be found all over Ireland. But probably the most famous location is is Fermanagh. Um, my last name adopted is Murphy. I have a video on the Murphys. Primarily found in coastal regions, comes from a couple of Irish names such as Merciata, um, and a lot of websites will claim Viking descent, which is wrong on so many levels. But um, yeah, it's it's not true. uh, Flanagan, in case I missed it, have you done Flanagan? Yeah, I'm sorry if you did. It's okay if you did. No, I didn't do Flanagan. Flanagan's got a couple of like branches. One of them's quite famous for being like a Brehon family, so specialists in legal lineages. They would do a learned family, as it were. Um, yeah, but I think if I remember rightly, they're from Corkermore in um, in County Clare. So you find them in Clare would be there's also Flanagans from Fermanagh and Roscommon, which is probably, I think, maybe the more famous branches. So Roscommon, Fermanagh. So there's three Flanagan variations: Clare, Roscommon, and Fermanagh. The White family. Interesting thing about the White surname. The So in 1366, White is obviously an English surname, and in 1366 or 1367, the English made a law that anyone who lived in the Pale. So hang on, let me just get the map up. So there's the Pale, ruled by England. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, right? That's the Pale, ruled by England. And they basically stated that anyone who lived in that, any Irish family that lived in that, had to change their name from either to a job title like butler, carpenter, archer, whatever, harper, actually, to be fair, the ones they specify are butler, smith, amongst few others, but also change their name to a town like Chester, or they had to change their name to a colour like black, brown, or white. So you find that White's a very common surname in Ireland because a lot of families in this area were changing their name to White. It's also a name that was adopted by anyone that had the name. So White in Irish, I believe, is Bon, and anyone that had the surname Ban. So like the Bannons, the McGilligans, um, which is a variation of Galligan, the McElweans, um, in their original Irish variation, their Anglicisation of names, they all changed their name to White as well. In you know, the Kilbeans, they all changed the name to White. So you have all these families changing their names to White all over Ireland. I think the Kerry Whites are of English descent, though. There's a branch from Kerry that are specifically from England. They were, I believe, a Cromwellian soldier was given land in Kerry. So, yeah, that would be um, the white. It's very problematic. DNA is probably the only way to get that. If I was to come to Ireland, which place was for the powers? If I had to guess, I'd probably say the only castle that comes to mind is the Dunhill Castle. It was one of their seats. It's in the village of Dunhill, which is just west of Waterford. Um, that would be. I watched a documentary or information on O'Mara's on YouTube. Great, PJ. Well, appreciate that, PJ. Well, I hope you found it all right. Any suggestions? Please put it in the comments of the video. Been told Connolly is not connected to Connolly. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. They're variations of the same name. But obviously you will have branches that have different variations, different names. But Connolly and Connolly can be spelled both the same way, and different ways. If you look at any of my TikTok videos, you'll see all the variations I put up on the very first couple of seconds of the name. They're all of them are interchangeable. So, it's just people who tell you that Mac is Scottish and Muck is Irish, and they spell it this way if you're Catholic and spell it that way if you're Protestant. It's all nonsense. Green. Green's the same as white. Green's the same as white. Green has so there's a many families. There's a branch of O'Sullivans that took on the surname Green. There's the Greenies, the McGrains, the Gleesons, the Ophiacs, the O'Glassians. There's so many branches of that name that got anglicised to Green. Green is just another same as white. There's so many branches of it. Names like that, like white, green, brown, black. If you've got any of those names, literally there are so many unrelated families that from many Irish families that changed their name to that colour. With that name, but that colour. It's do you have a YouTube video on the O'Reillys? Not yet, but I will be doing a TikTok video on them very soon. Probably next week. Is Alan an Irish name? Again, Alan is another Scottish and Irish name. You have the MacAleans that are Scottish. Traditionally, they were Gallowglass from like Donegal. Most of them changed their name to Campbell. So you have like Campbells that have become the MacAleans. They are but you the O'Cullens would change their name to Alan. The Cullens, the Fallons, they all changed their name to Alan. So there are Irish Allens too. My neighbour's a Campbell. Yeah, so there are Irish and Scottish Campbells that are totally unrelated. The Scottish Campbells are probably the most famous. But you do get Irish Campbells that are that are not of the clan Campbell from the Highlands from Argyll. Um, is Maxwell Irish? This is an interesting one because there are some Scottish names and English names that got Gaelicized and were given Irish names, but they were never Irish. So the Maxwells, I don't know if they became O'Maskells or O'Maskells became Maxwells or vice versa. If maybe the Maxwells, so Maxwell's a plantation name anyway, primarily. A lot of Maxwells came across to Ireland. I believe they're Scottish. Actually, some of them are from a village not far from me. There's a very famous group of them from a place called Kirkcobham. And so you do get plantation Maxwells that came across in the early modern period. But there is O'Maskells, and I don't know if they've become Gaelicized over in Ireland or if there was O'Maskells changing their name. So I need to check up on that a bit more to find out for sure. But I did it again. I forgot to. Is my volume too low? TikTok is gonna hate me. I got suspended from TikTok again. Well. If someone could do me a... Well, you can't even go onto their chat. TikTok. I swear you're so annoying with this inactivity thing. Keep missing it. I've always loved the history of names. I grew up in West Virginia, and because of all the Irish coal mines, we had a county called Campbell County, and would have gone to Campbell High School. See, I believe most Appalachian sort of families are primarily, most of them are actually Scottish descent. A lot of Campbells originally. So Appalachia was primarily settled by, the southern counties were primarily settled by Ulster Scots. So a group that's a self-designated name. These are just families that moved across in the 17th century to Ireland, stayed there for about a century, 3 generations tops, and most of them would then move on to the Americas. And they would never have really referred to themselves as like Ulster Scots, or that was a later term coined. But yeah, so you get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm Irish," and they reel off an Ulster Scot family, and that's where the terminology kind of gets a bit hazy. But as far as I'm concerned, call yourselves what you want. However you identify. I'm not going to gatekeep anything. Yeah, TikTok has kicked me off. Oh well. Well, I don't know. I didn't have a chat really planned for tonight. Like I say, it was just the Battle of the Boyne. I was going to mention it. You should have had a timer of the buzzer so you don't get banned. Yeah, they have a buzzer and a timer, but I don't know why it's not coming through my speaker, that buzzer. I don't know why. It's annoying. Yeah, but I I don't have an, and YouTube chat's normally quite quiet, so I'm a bit like, do we continue? Otherwise, it's just me talking, waffling to myself. No, I don't want to feel people to feel like they have to ask questions as well, you know. And I think it slows down a bit too much. And it is midnight. Do we call it? Do we? Or use? Have any of us any questions? Any questions at all about Irish history? Anything at all? Fire it away. Anything on the Battle of the Boyne? Yeah, loads. You just want me to go. Do you want me to name some of the McKenna is Irish and Scottish. McKenna is so McKenna comes from, so there's a Monaghan family called McKenna, and then there's a Scottish family called McKenna, who I believe someone said earlier he thought they were a branch of the Mackenzies. So, yeah, so you sort of get that. This Irish and Scottish person. I asked earlier about the three Tua. Woden, you have to give me a bit more context to that, because to me, Tua is a community, an Irish law tracts. It's not. It's a divide of what's it was a. There's not really. There was, what is it? The three Tua in Connacht? Is it, have you got a bit more, just a little bit more? Because, like I say, Tua groups, a king would rule 3 to 4 Tua. I needed just a little bit more, context to that question. You have to write oh, hi, Rua. Great to see you. You have to write a historical history novel about an Irish family. Who do you choose? Who's got the best stories? Right. That is excellent. But I have a problem with it. So I've spoken to Kat about something similar before, in that I love the O'Sullivan story, primarily, obviously, with their troubles during the 9 Years' War, especially the O'Sullivan Bears, the O'Sullivan March, the 300 mile march in winter. 1,000 of them, and only 36 sort of make it to Cavan, through snow and everything. It's such a tragic story, and obviously the massacre of Dursey Island and the siege of Dunboy. It would make for a great film, I think. But it's only a very short flash of history in there, and I think if you're writing a novel, maybe you want something that's got a bigger scope, shall we say. So I think for a movie, maybe they've got that great flash in it. I've always liked the O'Briens, obviously, but I feel like they're when it comes to Irish history, they're a bit like the it's like, I don't know, when I grew up, Michael Jordan was the best basketball player, and any basketball game you played, you just everyone tried to pick Michael Jordan, and I think the O'Briens are just that character. um, I always feel like the Butlers, Burkes, and Fitzgeralds were the most important families in Irish history, especially in the uh, later later Middle Ages onwards. I feel like the divides between the Burkes, the divides between the Fitzgeralds, more the Burke divide in the family because it was more brutal. They were more in competition with each other than the Fitzgerald and the Desmond and the Kildare Fitzgeralds. Obviously, I've done the Butlers with yourself many a times. We've done great stuff on that. Um, oh, this is. The O'Rourke's have a great history, but they're quite an aggressive family. They're really. Do you know what? I'm gonna do the O'Farrells, and purely because if you read the if you do the O'Farrells, so they were originally uh, um, subservient to the O'Rourke's, and when the O'Rourke's spread out of Leitrim and they owned Connacht and they owned Brefna, and all the annals is just basically they get their independence in about the 14th century, and the annals will just spend the next 200 years. It's just filled with them fighting the O'Rourke's aggressions and O'Reilly's aggressions and the O'Kelly aggressions. You know, they're just completely surrounded, and it's the same. It's the same with the O'Connor Fayleys. It's the same with the O'Byrnes. I love a good story of a little family holding its own against the underdog, the David and Goliath. So I'm gonna go. If I had to pick, I'm gonna go the O'Farrells, just because they become quite a prominent family, all the while being surrounded by enemies. So that would be my that would be. Although I have been working on a not a book per se. I don't know if any of you ever remember where you'd had those old books where you start off and it says go if you turn left, turn to page 8, or turn right, turn to page 10, and then you go down a hallway, and then it says do you open the door, and if yes you go to page 11, and if you say no you go to page 16 and carry on the story. I've been working on a digital format of that where you start off as a clan, an individual in a clan, and um, you name the clan, obviously. So you can put if you're an O'Sullivan, you can put O'Sullivan, because I leave the area of Ireland a bit ambiguous, so you can be anywhere. It's set a century after the Norman invasion, and you know, I've been working on that for about a few years, but it's a long slog trying to get all the bits to match up, because you know the story can have multiple endings, so you have to try and make them tie in. But yeah. Yeah, choose your own adventure books. It is basically, but it's an app form. You know, so it's you'll just click the choices. You'll get sometimes a number of choices. Um, and I'm undecided whether to bring stats into it. Like charm, so a bit of an RPG element to it, but a very light RPG element, um, which would deny you choices later on. Um, so I've tested it and stuff like that. So um, we'll see how it goes. Was reading about kinfall of T2s. I do not. I do not know. I do not know anything about that. Let me just quickly see if I've got anything in my notes. Let's just see. Let's just see. Of Roscommon. The first search brings him up as the O'Boyles. So that would be Donegal. Woden. So yeah, that was just obviously a very quick search. I just wanted to see if I'd ever seen it before, but yeah, that seems to be that seems to be the O'Boyles sort of clan name. And obviously anyway, so we're slowing down here. Anything on the Harris name in Limerick? I don't know of the Harris name in Limerick. I know it's very common in Ulster. And it's obviously got a plantation and an Irish origin. I know, and it's also very common in Mayo. It's normally anglicised to like Harrow, Harrahy, Harris, Hoare, Harrison. But I don't know of any specific branch from Limerick. Like I say, it's Mayo and Ulster are tend to be the main areas for it. Mayo and Ulster. I don't know. I'm sorry, Red Crazy. I do not know any Irish step history, like Irish dancing history. Although I did Irish dance as a child, but I don't know the history of it. It wouldn't be my area of study. It wouldn't be an area that I was ever sort of interested in. Typical boy's boy growing up. I was interested in battles and castles and all that sort of. Even though I did dance, I wasn't interested in the history of dance, so I couldn't tell. I do know that a lot of what we associate with Irish culture today is, especially like our dancing, like Irish dancing, is fairly modern. Most of it sort of associated with the 19th century, and it comes from a variation of a few things. A native dancing that was influenced by places in Europe. The thing is, things like fashion, dance, food. Ireland was very connected to the rest of Europe, so these things always changed. Were continuously changing. As the latest fashions were coming from places like Italy, France, England. I missed it. Did it for a few years. Still have hard shoes from being a kid. I mean, to be fair, I only did it for about a year, and then I wasn't allowed to take part in a festival that they were doing, and yeah, it was so I quit. Does anyone in Ireland still speak a Squilga? I've always grew up wanting to learn. Yes, a lot of places. A a lot of places still speak it. In modern day Northern Ireland, there are a few Gaeltachts, which are like native Irish speaking areas, like in Belfast. Um, but these are obviously areas that have been designated this term after. It's still English would be the first spoken language of everyone in modern day Northern Ireland. But Gaeltacht still exists in the west of Ireland, um, along in many wee groups, Galway and stuff like that. Uh, but most Irish is a growing language in both constituents. Most people can speak it to a certain degree. It's very politically charged in Northern Ireland, unfortunately. People have used it for as a political stick to beat others, and then there have been some who are just outright uh, xenophobic towards it. So for no reason. So as well. So it's a bit of a touchy subject, but yeah, but it's still spoken by quite a lot of people. Is Harris Irish or Harris has Irish and Norman, so the name is uh, associated with the Norman invasion of Ireland, um, in its etymology. But there were Irish families that adopted the surname Harris, um, because it was similar to their original names. I still want to learn so bad. I'm not sure where to start. My mom's great grandparents were the ones that came over. So I recommend Duolingo. I know the guy who wrote that part of the app for Squelga. I recommend Duolingo, but I also recommend things like TikTok. There are some really good teachers on TikTok. I also recommend just getting. So I have quite a lot of uh, TikTok um, channels that are just purely Esquelga. They're just purely Irish, purely Gaelic. And what I'll do is I just, for the sake of 2 minute video, if they appear on my feed, I watch it, listen to it, just so that the language becomes familiar. And you'll find that when you're learning words through Duolingo, you start hearing them in the conversations. That's because what you're learning in places like Duolingo, you're not really learning to speak it, you're just learning to say the word, if that makes sense. So when you hear it in a conversational context, you'll start to understand it better. Especially, one of my good friends, she has she got to a stage where she turned her phone into Irish, so she has to read Irish every day to um, access apps on her phone and stuff like that. So it's just introducing it into some of your daily routine. When I was teaching my boys Irish, we did is they had to ask for a drink in Irish, or and if they asked for a drink in Irish, they got um, like a reward, or so just like reward yourself for. And people say just drop it in conversation, like when you're say goodbye in Irish, or say hello in Irish, or um, you know you just go up to someone and go, do it, yeah, I can't even speak, do your gitch, and then just speak normally afterwards. Not I meant great, not three too great. So um yeah, so yeah, that's what I would sort of suggest, um if you're wanting to learn, you know uh learn Irish. That would be the way. That would be the way I would start it, and then it'll just come so much more naturally afterwards. I'm an Irish traveller. People think bad of us all, but my last name is part. People have a habit to generalize entire communities based on the actions of a few, and based on the non-conformity to general society that groups like travelers do. But I think it's all just naivety. It's all just I have traveller family on one side of my family, and yeah, nothing wrong with them. But obviously, there are stereotypes that exist, and I sometimes feel some people play into them. Some groups, some families do. Poor County like Caesar. Yeah, got abandoned, Ray. Macatier asked a while back, learn anything new about them? No, I haven't learned anything new apart from what did I learn about the Macatiers? Oh, it appears that Fermanagh is white. So it's primarily found in like Fermanagh, and it's mostly associated with Scotland. So it's a name that came across with the plantations, but obviously, like I said, I think I said before that there could be an Irish branch of it, but I haven't I haven't found anything that confirms that as of yet. Obviously it's a variation of McIntyre, McAteer, McIntyre. It's all part of the same sort of branch of names. Look, it's like every community. We have good and bad. We're not all. Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. 100% agree. Have a good night. I'm heading out at 7:30 here. Time for food. Yeah, I'll be closing off very soon. We'll have been on live 2 hours, which is normally my limit before I start getting a bit tired. Having to think of so many names, think of the locations, it starts to get a bit heavy on my brain, my poor brain. So we'll be sort of heading soon as well. And also losing TikTok, it just slowed the live right down, and that's nothing on you guys. Normally I would have a backup, some sort of thing, and someone asked more about the Boyne. Did I talk more about? I can't even remember if I talked more about the Boyne or what they would want to know. Although it has put me in mind to maybe do a video on it, but I can't decide whether to do it. As a video, a long form or not. Yeah, Cat, you're yawning, or is that me yawning? I don't know. It's like say, starts to get a bit just as we get through the night. Oh, I start getting here. Oh, tell you what. Yeah. I think you. Yeah. Bless me. I know. I started to like say. I suppose what we could do. I'll quickly just because I know we spoke about the battle, and the context of the battle. I'll just run through the. We'll fly off the end with the end of the Battle of the Boyne. Some sort of like aftermath. But yeah, so I sort of said William had done like a 3-pronged attack. The left flank failed on the battle line of the Battle of the Boyne, and obviously then we had the retreat, which was covered by the Tyrconnell horse. Um, yeah, so because King James II, who commanded the Jacobite forces, fled the battle prematurely, effectively, and he departed for France. Um, and it's seen as a panicked retreat by him. Obviously, once his left flank had failed, um, the Williamite victory, the Jacobite disarray, um, and obviously the whole thing was a bit of a confused melee. I think is the term that actually some people have used before. But like I say, he flees to France. The Irish cavalry are fighting valiantly. They provide cover for the main army's retreat towards Duleek. And after the battle, the Jacobite forces moved to the centre of Ireland. I can't remember where, but they moved to and Sarsfield's group was encouraged by the news of the French naval victory of Beachy Head. So this kind of made all the Jacobites go, right, okay, we'll head to Limerick, try and regroup there, and hold a defensive line of the Shannon River. So they'd actually managed to destroy some of William III's sort of artillery and heavy guns that were coming from Dublin. So there was a bit of a skirmishes happening all over Ireland. These wee little skirmishes, and it looked like the Jacobites may actually have a very successful campaign on their hands if they could maintain it, because the war would continue for another year. Despite the battle being a turning point, it wasn't the end of the war immediately, and like I said, continued for another year even after James had left. It's in the Battle of Aughrim in 1691, which is often considered really the major significant real trial of strength, and the end of the sort of Williamite War. Both armies are sort of the same size by this stage, and it looked like the Irish actually might win the Battle of Aughrim in 1691, but the French general, I can't remember his name, but he was killed, and this actually caused the collapse of the Jacobite army. So he was killed in that battle, and it caused a weakening in the army. They started to retreat once their general was killed. And it was the Battle of Aughrim was actually one of the bloodiest battles in Irish history. I think it's up to about 7,000 men were killed in this. So, and then we have the siege following Aughrim. We have the sieges of Limerick, sieges of Galway. And although the Jacobites won the first siege of Limerick, and held off the Williamites, the second one obviously didn't end so well. Although William was graceful in victory, shall we say, he did come up with good terms. The Articles of Limerick was a fair compromise for a near complete defeat of the Jacobite forces in Ireland. William's terms were quite fair, but unfortunately the terms he agreed were not ratified by the Irish Parliament, and so none of them really came into effect. So it actually came into what was known as the penal laws and the Protestant ascendancy of Ireland. So and that's where the English crown would strip all the economic and religious freedoms for the Catholic majority. So it would start a very turbulent time in Irish history. But that's the importance of the Jacobite and the Battle of the Boyne and the Williamite Wars in Ireland. So there you go. That's the history. We'll end on that. We started on the surnames. We started on the beginning of the Boyne, the history of the Battle of the Boyne, and we end up on the end of it, just as I'm feeling very tired. So we'll end it there. So thanks very much for tuning in, and hopefully next week I'll stop getting banned from TikTok. So I'll see you all then. So Dave, Kat, Red, if you're still here, James, Rua, Joshua, thank you very much for tuning in. You know, I really do appreciate it. Whoa. What can you say about Jonathan Swift and Sir William Temple? Yeah, I mean, as far as like people, the Anglo-Irish gentry of the time, um, you know, it's obviously his connection to Swift's connections to writing and you know, the Temple family. I mean, associations with. I mean, I can't remember if that temple is associated with the Scarver family of Temple, but the Scarver temples, the O'Reilly temples. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk about them another time, but I definitely can't talk about them right now. So take care. Thanks very much, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Slug full.